So you spend several hours traveling through the darkness, guided by Wena, who was one of the individuals you guys had saved from the orcs. She tells you that she will take you to her people who have a village a few miles to the west, east, which is actually taking you in the right direction. It's bringing you closer to Rivendell. So you follow her and her companions through the dark, and after a few hours, you see this darkening fortification appear. Actually, to call it a fortification would probably be too grandiose. It's actually a palisade of timber and earth with a squat little timber gatehouse. As she approaches the gatehouse, she whistles, and there's another whistle you can hear. And you hear the lifting of a bar and the creaking of a gate. And she leads you through. And you hear mumbled voices from the gate tower as they see you all enter. There's a yell out across the village, and you see some lights appear in these squat little windows. The village itself, you see, is made of mud brick huts with thatch roof. Several individuals approach your company as you get through the gate. You hear the gate closing behind you, and you see a couple of men restoring a bar across the gate. They don't say anything to you. They immediately go back inside the gate tower. But Luftwena and Freeman stand with you. That is until Luftwena sees a trio approaching. She immediately she looks at you and then runs to them, and she embraces this large man. He has gray hair and an equally gray beard. His face is leathered and wrinkled with age. He's probably in his later 40s, early 50s. Probably once a powerful man. You can still see it in his arms. Though he is starting to show his age, carrying more weight in his midsection. He gives Luftwena an enormous hug, and a woman who is much shorter than the man, though appears younger. Her hair still brown, though streaked with some silver. Tears streak her cheeks, and she hugs her as well. Luftwena, you can hear them a mumbled conversation or not a muted conversation, and then she turns and points to the rest of you. And to just answer your question, yes, at the end of last session, you guys had taken time to take a short rest, and you guys tended to any injuries you had.
So as she points over in our direction, Badu, who is kind of looking around at the inside here to kind of get his bearings and see what they're all about, trying to kind of get a gauge of maybe what their primary source of living is. So if they're mostly farmers or even maybe warriors or scavengers, he's trying to kind of see based on the his immediate surroundings and the people. He's kind of trying to take it in and see what they're walking into here. But then when she points over in the direction, he kind of notices it out of the corner of his eye, and he looks over and he like straightens up a little bit, like he's being called on to attention. And then he realizes he's not sure why he did that, and he loosens up, looking at the rest of his group to see what they're doing.
Yeah, so in the darkness, the night sky the moon is absent. and it's hard to see exactly how big this village is. You can see several of these squat mud brick huts, and you see people milling about. At this point, Freeman says a quick goodbye to you as he himself runs to a group of individuals who had appeared further down kind of this rough road. It's hard to say. It kind of seems to you as though this is much like it reminds you of the villages of home, which is odd, Badu, because you don't remember your home, but you have this memory, and it reminds you of that. And you would probably guess that they most likely subsist from farming and hunting. You can see some skins off just dimly that are stretched out to dry, having been cured.
Yeah, he feels a vague familiarity, and he's not quite able to put his finger on it. And it's probably right about that time as Freeman runs off that the voices start to kind of murmur in the back of his head, and he for whatever reason he keeps looking around at this place, and he almost feels at home, but not quite. He feels like he should be here, but at the same time he's not welcome.
Lafuina is now approaches your fellowship, the man and woman in tow, and you see a third man as well, as stocky as the first, though appears younger, his hair darker, as his beard. But there's a stunning similarity between the older man and the younger. They would probably mark them as brothers, more likely than not. As Lafuina approaches, you hear her say, "Ma and Da, these are the ones who saved us." And I would imagine you guys would have at least shared names. So she would introduce you all, starting with Arafor, Moira, Badu, Lily, and then Wari. And to each one, her father, which is the older man, would give you a very curt nod, a broad smile on his face. And when the introductions are done, she introduced her father as Kale and her mother as Celine. And she also introduces her uncle, Rodwin. And Kale would approach you, Arafor, and he'd say, "Oh yeah, I forgot about Baralas. That's right, and Baralas as well. So Baralas would be part of those. Thank you." So Kale approaches you, Arafor. Oh, and Jeff is, I didn't know he was away. So Jeff, Lafuina's father is the older man, and his name is Kale. He approaches you, and he puts out a hand, and he says, "I cannot thank you for returning our daughter to us. She was taken several days back as they were hunting."
It was simply my duty.
He kind of measures you as you say that, and then a knowing look crosses his eyes as he marks you as a ranger. I should have expected nothing less. Still, we can do little to repay you, but you may rest here if you would like. If you need provisions, we could help you.
We will be traveling quite a ways towards the west. Any supplies would be very much appreciated. It would help us a lot.
He smiles, nods his head, and says, "We will do what we can. We are but simple farmers and hunters here. But what we have, we will share with you." And he would look across the rest of you as he says that. Um, you see a dark look on Rodwin's face, Badu, as Kale is talking with Arafor.
And Badu, he's still a little bit lost in thought, and he sees this, and he kind of zones out, and he starts staring at his face, kind of enamored, and at the same time that endless murmur in the back of his mind just kind of making him feel very very uncomfortable, as it almost is louder here than it was on the road. At least on the road he could drown it out, but here it almost seems as if it's trying to tell him something, but he doesn't know what it is. And he sees the look on Rodwin's face, and he looks back with a very blank expression. And if Rodwin were to look in Badu's direction or make eye contact with him, Badu almost snaps out of it, and then kind of does the whistling and looking around like he wasn't just staring at this guy for a few very uncomfortable seconds.
Nah, if he noticed you looking, he doesn't give any sign. But what you notice now that you didn't before is that he holds tightly in his left hand a great axe.
And he holds it out.
No, he's holding it just in his left hand. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
but it's not sheathed.
No, it's out. It's
yeah,
out.
so he kind of like takes note of that, and his right hand twitches a little bit too, almost as if a reflex to grab for his hand axe or something. And then he quickly realizes that he probably means nothing by it, but he sees the dour look on Rodwin's face and the axe in his hands, and keeps one eye on him as they continue.
Celine steps forward, interrupting Kale's with a gentle hand on his arm. She goes, "Love, we can talk more. Let's get out from the night sky." And she gently starts to bring him back towards their home, and she waves for you to follow.
Is she waving at all of us?
Yeah, there's no one person that she waves.
Okay.
Kale would almost fall right into step beside her as she turns to leave, and she would stop. If you aren't following, she would stop just long enough to give you one of those, well, come on. And Lafuina would stay behind just long enough to give you all an encouraging word and an offering of food and a warm place to sleep for the night.
And at that, Lily would be the first one to go forward.
Yeah. Okay.
Moira probably falls in step just behind Lily, keeping close to the small hobbit.
Lily smiles up at Moira.
Perfect. So you're leading your horses through this village. You see people's faces in doorways and windows, and the braver ones are standing outside of their huts, and they watch you walk past, and they lead you to another. It's a modest dwelling. It's one room, but it's large enough for all of you. Kale helps you and shows you where you can put your horses. It's nothing. It's just more of it's like a lean-to with a fenced-in area where horses can stretch their legs. He throws fresh hay and oats down out for them. And the meal itself that they offer you is simple. It's just some sort of stew with roots and meat. You would guess maybe rabbit by its taste. And so they ask, as the meal is about halfway done, Hrodwin asks you, he's been pretty quiet up until now. What brings you all to the Lone Lands, so heavily armed? Him I know, and he points with his spoon at you, Arafor.
We are traveling together. There's safety in numbers.
That is wise. The orcs are plentiful here in the Lone Lands, not more so than in years past. And you would see this look, anyone that is looking at Kale, you would see Kale shoot this look to his brother.
Lily would have a question. And she says, have you seen them out during the daylight?
I've seen them. They seem not to care of the sun.
Yeah. That's what we found, too. It's very disturbing. And she goes back to eating.
Kale chimes in. The other end of the this hut. It's probably about 25 feet by about 20 feet. And you guys are just sitting on simple benches. He says, "Yeah, they move in the light, but they still prefer to move it when the sun is gone." Something drives them, though. We have not always lived here, Kale says.
Where were you before?
Hrodwin speaks up at this. Minas Error. 'Tis our home. We are driven from it. And he spits on the ground. You see Celine frown when he does that.
Driven by them. Their ilk?
He just grunts and spoons another large mouthful of stew. He wipes his mustache and beard with the back of his hand. Almost a year now. They are led by the strangest orc I've ever seen. His skin, white as snow. Big, too. Almost as big as that one. And he points to you, Badu.
Would we have heard any stories of a white orc before?
You can give me a history roll. Arafor, you could definitely give me a history roll.
Yeah, would Lily have picked something up in her?
I believe you have the ability to pick up stuff. Yeah, you're a took.
Yep. And I have yes, features of many things that are sort of hidden and things that sort of show up.
Jeff, quick question. Your ability, what skills does that actually impact? What DCs does that lower?
Which one?
So you have the you have your ranger abilities that like increase. Is it just your survival checks? And that those DCs that it lowers, or does it lower you like your history DCs as well?
It's just the journey event tests. So like things specific to the actual journey themselves.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not just everything in general.
Okay. And Lily, were you going to test your history?
Yeah. It says once during adventuring phase, I can add +5 to one of my active ability checks. This seems like it might be a good place to do that.
So Lily,
To learn about a person, place, or event. So I figured he's a person.
You're ladling out your third bowl of this stew, which is actually quite good, if more bland to your taste, but still warm and
I end up with a 12. So I guess
12.
that's not
Okay.
that bad a roll.
So at the mention of this white orc, Era 4, Moira, and Lily, you would have remembered each in your own different ways. You, Era 4, as you spent time with your fellow rangers, that you had heard rumor of this orc, but it seemed more of just rumor. Nothing confirmed. None of your compatriots had seen this white orc. Moira, as you traveled north with Imladris, you had heard this rumor as well about this great white orc that had banded together several smaller tribes of goblin and orc in the areas of the southern lowlands, but nothing more than that. It seemed to be just tales told to scare travelers and hopefully get them to hire more guards to protect their lives and their merchandise. You, Lily, would have heard this as well, as you spent time in the local taverns and inns in the Shire as people traveled west. So very similar to what Era 4 and Moira had heard, but nothing more than that. And most people were dismissive, calling it just people creating spinning tales.
Lily would kind of look up again from her stew. Think, do you actually know anything about this white orc? Have you seen him? I've heard tales, but nothing concrete.
Kale would nod his head, as would his brother. Many of our men, we fought them, but there were too many. They had with them their large wolves and others, ogres.
Thinking about this, Lily remembers where she started on this whole journey, where she had wanted to find out what was behind. Those goblins being able to come out in the daylight and kill her friend. What was going on? What had changed? And she's wondering if this has anything to do with that. She kind of sits and ponders on that.
Celine would chime in, her voice much softer than that of her husband and her brother-in-law. "'Tis troubled times we are in now. Troubled times indeed. It seems we are fated to always suffer such." Lothwina throws an arm around her mother to comfort her, and she smiles at her and pats her hand.
And Lily's, yes, it certainly seems that way. But we must take whatever stand that we can. We can't just let it roll right over us. I know we can't, every one of us, do everything, of course.
You hear Hrodwin. He kind of. And what could you do, little one?
Not as much as I wish I could. I've been able to heal my comrades and help in some ways with my small skills. One of my good friends was killed by a goblin. I felt if I stayed home, I would just be... It wouldn't be any safer or more and less useful than seeking out the source of this as best I can.
He looks about to say something else to you, Lily, but you see this stern look from his brother, and he stops. He scowls and puts more stew into his mouth, and he just chews it slowly, as though he's chewing on the words that he meant to say to you.
And Badu's still, he's very stoically eating his stew. And he's keeping his eye, he's kind of bouncing between, as the conversation goes on. But his focus is mostly on this Hrodwin fellow. And could I tell at all if perhaps the scowl that he wore earlier, maybe his just overall sour demeanor, is maybe due to the orcs, or can I see if maybe something else might be driving him?
You could definitely give me an insight check on that if you've been watching his behavior.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. That is a 12.
Yeah. So what does Badu think is driving this behavior for him?
So basically, Badu's trying to see if he's just frustrated about the orcs, or if there's something else that might.
Oh no. I was just gonna say whatever Badu thinks.
Okay,
that's what
yeah.
Badu thinks. I don't want to tell you what Badu thinks. You tell me what Badu thinks.
So probably is he still? Let me ask. Is he still holding or equipped with his axe?
The minute they walk into this hut or this lodge, he sets it off to the side, just inside the doorway.
Okay,
you would see another axe, a bow, a few bows and whatnot there as well.
So he would kind of then at this point he would probably kind of write it off as just general frustrations at their situations, and but he would still keep his eye on him, but a little less judgmentally so, or a little less concerned rather. And he would kind of lighten up. You could probably see it in his face. He loosens up a little bit as the conversation goes on, and the man is venting about these orcs, and he assumes that that's likely the source of his frustrations.
Yeah. So Loftwina and her mother start to roll out pallets, or make these pallets over closer to this, and it's kind of like in the center of this this lodge. You would see there's a fire pit in the middle, unlike most most other villages you would see. They would have like a hearth or something like that, but no, this has like a fire pit in the middle. So they move a couple of these benches aside and start laying out these pallets for folks to sleep upon, and they pull this curtain across part of the lodge, and that's where they disappear to after saying that they are going to retire for the evening. Kale and Hrodwin would as well. Not long after that, Kale would just stand up, kind of like look around at you all, making sure that he has been met all measures of hospitality, and when he feels that he's satisfied that, he nods not to any one of you, and then himself walks to the other side of the curtain. Haradwin is the last. He kind of scrapes the bottom of his bowl and puts it into this bucket that is situated against the far wall, and he rolls out himself a pallet and says nothing to any of you unless you say anything to him. And in no time, you can hear snoring coming from the man.
Worry at this time, probably silent for most of this, would probably be sitting between Badu and Baralas. He would lean over to Badu and just whisper, "For saving 4 people's lives just a few hours ago, he seems rather jaded."
And Badu would lean back, probably right around the time that his eyes were diverting back to the man, and he would kind of quietly say, I agree. I think these orcs have really gotten to him.
I don't know, just something just doesn't feel right. Like, sure, the orcs got to you, but I don't know. What Lionel, would I have noticed if he was, that guy was interacting with any of the villagers that we brought back in any way, shape, or form besides just a smile?
Haradwin, no.
Yeah.
He seemed Loftwina was the only one. Maybe you would see him nod to one of the others, but no meaningful interaction.
Okay.
He seemed to have come to the gate with his brother and sister-in-law.
I'd probably just toil that in the back of my head as I just wander around. What's like the state of their living conditions? I know they were like ejected from their home and now use this, but like what?
So this is a rather large lodge, but like the other huts that you saw, it's built with mud bricks, which is basically mud and straw packed in together and used to form bricks. There's no door. The door is a blanket that's hanging across. And there's just a couple of squat windows in there. Again, those they don't have. They're not windows. There's nothing there. You can see that they put small boards up in there to block the windows. But the floor itself is packed earth. It seems clean, and the pallets are up above, up off of the ground. It's dry, and but it's very simple. They don't have much in the way of furnishings. A table where meals are prepared, a barrel of water. You can see herbs and dried meats hanging from the rafters above. The roof itself is thatch.
Do they look like they're struggling to survive in any way, shape, or form?
They looked hardy. They looked healthy and hardy. It's definitely, you would definitely guess, a hard living. Very rustic.
Okay. He would just note that, and I think Wari would just, besides a few small whispers here and there to Bearlash, just have been quiet the last little hour or so.
Yeah, she would probably engage in that quiet conversation with you. She would do her best to assure you that everything is all right. And she would probably, knowing Bearlash, she would say something like, "But we have to remember what we are quested to do. We won't forget, right, Worry?"
No, we won't. And we can't help everybody that we come across either.
she would smile at that and give you a kiss on your forehead before she herself claims a pallet and lays down to rest. So the rest of you would feel the same way. You would feel rather tired from your earlier day's exertion, and then engaging in that fight with those orcs. So if there's nothing else, you guys would all retire to a pallet, and the night would pass. You awake the next morning. It's much later than most of you would sleep to, but you awake to the sounds of living village around you. But you also hear and smell the rain that is falling from the sky. Lily, you would have probably had those aches or that sense the night before. And why maybe you didn't say anything is because with all the events going on around you, it maybe didn't seem so important. But you can definitely hear the rain falling now. You notice that at the doorway of this lodge, it's raised, so as the rain falls outside, it keeps the floor inside this lodge dry. It's like a stoop, I guess. As you look around, let me see. Let's see who wakes up first. Lily, as you look around, you see the others still sleeping, though through the cracks in the windows, and at the base of the blanket, that heavy blanket that hangs in the doorway, you can kind of see that silverish glow of a cloudy morning. You can see the pattering of rain outside, muddying the makeshift road that kind of winds through these huts.
Seeing that her friends were sleeping and thinking that it was good for them, Lily's going to dress very quietly and slip out and go see to the horses, particularly her pony, which she's really quite fond of.
Yeah, as you step outside, the heavy rain quickly soaks through your cloak, and you notice that the horses and your pony and the ponies are hunkered down under the shelter of the lean-to, not wanting to venture out into the muddy fenced yard. But you see your pony's tail flick as you approach.
As Lily greets Isfael by name and Copper as well. And
yeah, the horse bites you, and then no, I'm just kidding. So while you're doing that, Lily, the rest of you slowly kind of come awake. You're not sure if it's when Lily kind of pulled open the blanket and this kind of cold, damp air came in. It rouses you. There's a small fire burning in the central pit, and it kind of just makes it kind of wave a little bit.
When Badu wakes up, it's a little bit more difficult than it usually is. Being able to sleep under a roof is always a nice change of pace, and he usually tries to take advantage of it. And he wakes up with extremely groggy and wiping away at his face, and he's got probably the nastiest case of bedhead ever, because not only is his hair sticking on end almost, so is his beard, and he kind of takes his time getting up and getting all of his things together before he heads out into the rain.
Yeah, and as Badu's kind of rummaging around, any of you that weren't fully awake come awake. Baralas kind of looks at you. She frowns at first, Badu, and then she smiles. And she herself she sees your bedhead and chuckles a bit, and then she realizes her own, and she immediately starts to run her fingers through it to try to straighten out what sleep has left her. And starts putting together her things. And she reaches over and slowly shakes you awake, Wari, and you as well, Moira. Arafor, I'm certain that you would definitely wake up long before she would need to shake you awake. You see no sign of any of the family that lived here, though. They seem to be gone. Lily, you're feeding oats from your hand to your pony that I refuse to give a name to. And you have that sense, that feeling like someone is watching you. You turn and look over your shoulder, and you can see Lafuina's father just kind of standing there, the rain kind of running down across his hair, matting it to his head. He nods when you see him look at him, and he kind of uses his head and swings it towards the lodge and turns to walk.
Lily kind of smiles at him when he nods and gives her pony Copper one more pat and slips out to follow him.
Kale comes through pulls the blanket aside and enters the lodge. He kind of stomps off and shakes out as much of the rain as he can. You see it just kind of patter onto the earthen floor, kind of making this little bit of a mess. And seeing that you all are awake, he's like, good. Thought I would let you all sleep in. You look tired enough. I saw the little one. She was feeding the horses. I have gotten together what I can for you.
And Badu reaches both of his arms up in the air, and he almost touches the ceiling as he stretches. And his hair still a mess as he stands near the door. He was about to leave as Kale came in, and he just still very groggily. He just says, "Thank you," and then he sits down. In now decided to wait for the rest of the group.
Yeah. So he would wait for you all to do whatever you needed to do to be ready. And when he sees you're ready, unless you say anything to him, he would just nod approvingly, and he would lead you out and down the street past the where the horses are stabled. But he brings you to this another squat hut, probably a little bit bigger than the lodge that his family lives in, and it seems to be some sort of storehouse. And he procures for you several casks sealed with flour and some dried meats, and even a small cask of a mead that this village makes. I know it is not much. And I can't remember. Did you guys tell them that you were going to Rivendell or just heading east?
I think we just said
Just
we
that we were
east.
heading east, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Don't know how far you go, but it will help you on your journey.
Your hospitality is much appreciated. Thank you.
He smiles when you say that, Moira, and just nods his head. And he would help you bring and pack your horses, ponies, and for the journey. The rain does little to let up. He would also give you each of you another cloak. You're not sure what it is. It seems to this cloak that he gives you seems to do an exceptional job of repelling the water. It kind of smells almost like a fat has been rubbed into the material, and it does a lot to wick the water away. And he says as much.
Oh, thank you so much. This will be highly appreciated.
And around that time is when Lofwina appears again, dressed in new clothes, her hair pulled back into a tight braid. She smiles at you all. She's herself wearing one of these cloaks. And she would walk with you with her father to the gate. And if you would say nothing to them, they would wish you well. And one of the things they would tell you is to stay clear of the marshes. So you set out, and the remainder of the day, the rain does little to let out. It definitely slows your travel, but you want to make up time that you missed. You started late morning, so you travel through the rest of the day and into the early dusk. Rain tormenting you the whole way. It's miserable.
Would Lily be able to give any kind of prediction as to how the weather's going to turn? Is it going to stay cold and wet, or?
Yeah, it feels wet.
Yeah,
feels wet to Lily.
You doesn't say too much.
You make your best to make a camp. It's fairly dry. It's a lot drier than it would be if you did not have shelter. But it doesn't beat staying a night under a warm roof. But you're able to rest, and this repeats itself several days. So 4 days later, the rain is now starting to slowly let up. Off in the distance, you can see the silver ribbon that is the river that separates the lone lands from the troll shaws. The Horwell, as it is called in the common tongue. You can see the river. You would know this river, and as you traveled across it, Wari and Badu, you had crossed this bridge as you headed west to Bree. You travel through the rest of the day, and the rain, like I said, has let go to just a slight drizzle. The sky is still gray with clouds, the air cold, the ground muddy and wet. You can feel it sucking at the hooves of your mounts, slowing their travel. As you approach this river, once again finding the road, you notice the bridge that you crossed is no longer there. It's been washed away by this great river that seems the rains have swollen the river, pushing it up beyond its banks, and it rages before you.
Badu, riding near or next to Wari, kind of laughs and then looks over at him and like nudges him, and then realizes that they're going to have to ford the river and kind of gets a little upset again, and he loses his smile.
This wasn't the river though that we had to go across, right? That was in the forest itself.
Yeah, but now we're going to have to cross this one.
Gotcha. All right, so he sees what you're getting at, and just that grimace, that straight smile / frown of his face, like absolutely dead parallel to the ground, appears on his face, and he just kind of like scowls at you for a second. He doesn't say, but he knows, you know.
Barolas has been very quiet in the last few days of your journey. You hear her just sort of sigh when she sees the river. She looks at you, Wari. You can see the concern on her face. What do you guys want to do?
Is it still a pretty good, like I know the bridge is gone, but is the river still like moving pretty fast?
It's hard to say. You can definitely tell that the river has a current. It's not white water in any fashion.
Okay. Steady. It's a steady.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe if you see a bit of debris floats by, you could kind of tell that it's moving.
Yeah. Badu would probably sitting on his horse. He would probably hop down actually into a bit of mud. His boots kind of sink just a little bit. Is the water near the banks here, and he's stroking at his chin, at his beard, thinking about trying to gauge kind of how they might fare going through here, with horses and ponies alike. He imagines that Moira and Isfael will be able to get through no problem, but it's the other horses and even Lily's pony that he's more concerned about. Is this river is a little bit wider and a little bit stronger than ones that they've forded in the past.
Yeah, this river is probably almost 50 or 60 feet across.
Yeah, so he's very, very visibly trying to gauge the situation and make a decision here, and he might eventually turn to look to Arafor and the rest of the party, and he'd probably just say, I don't know if we'll be able to make that. I don't know of anywhere else to cross.
Lily kind of looks at him. Is there any sign, Badu, of any kind of way across? I know the bridge is down, but are there any signs of boats or anything that might help?
Aye. The last time we came through here, the bridge was still up, so it's hard to see. I haven't checked. I mean, we could try going upstream and seeing if maybe there's something up there, but I'm not sure.
Arafor, what do you think?
Sorry, I think I might have missed it. How wide is this river?
About 60 feet. At its narrowest point, you would guess.
Yeah, that is a big river. Would Arafor know of any places where there would be any sort of crossing points for this bridge, even if they had to go a little out of the way?
Arafor would know that most would use the bridge. It's not too often that it gets washed out, but all the melt from the winter still swelling the river, and all this rain hasn't helped. So you would know that there's probably fords either if you went up the river or down. It's probably been a while since Arafor's been out this way. He would probably think the one south would probably be the easiest one to get to. But then he wouldn't necessarily know how swollen it might be.
Yeah, even if it was a little flooded, it would probably be easier to cross a slightly flooded bridge than to go through the deepest parts of the river. He would probably offer that up. Well, it's possible that it's a little out of the way, but if we went south towards a crossing point, even if it was flooded, it would at least have better support than trying to cross through anywhere else. Might be worth a little bit of an outside journey.
Yeah, you would lose maybe half a day if you were to do that, Arafor, you think, to go south along the river, use the ford, and then head back north, catching the road back toward Rivendell.
That
So
sounds good to me.
I was going to say, with
Yeah.
with no one opposing that plan, Arafor, you guys spend several hours heading south, and you get to the ford. You frown a bit, Arafor, as the water's a bit deeper than you had hoped, but still manageable. Maybe it'll be a little bit harder for the ponies, but the horses you feel would have better luck crossing. You might want to. I don't know if anyone has ever ridden a horse across a deeper ford, but I would imagine Arafor would, or even Moira for that matter, would explain how to sit the horse as they do so. So if you guys are going to ford the river, if there's anything that you would want to, anything that you guys would want to do, any preparations you want to make, just let me know. If not, I'll just need animal handling checks from you.
I think that it would be wise to use what rope we have, maybe to tie the ponies to the horses, so that the horses could help to pull them through.
And Moira would put Lily on Isfael with her to keep the pony from being as burdened.
Yes, good idea. Is anybody riding the other ponies?
Wari rides one of them,
Yeah.
and then one of them you guys use as a pack.
Okay, that's what I thought. Right, animal handling checks. Do we get any sort
from all
of
of us?
advantage for being tethered together, or?
Are all the horses tethered together, or just?
I would think it would be like one pony attached to one horse.
Yeah, like Isfael and Copper.
Yeah, exactly. Go in pairs.
Yeah.
The
I would
pony's
say
upstream, so if they get
Badu
washed
and-
into the horse could kind of help.
Badu and Wari's horse, and then Arafor with the and it probably wouldn't be Barrelast, but probably be Arafor with the pack pony. Yeah. So each of you that are leading a pony, I'll need you to make a animal handling check for the pony as well.
Oh, thank God.
Do those of us with ponies roll?
I got the pony.
Yeah, Moira, you're the first to cross with Lily and her pony Copper, and you make the crossing look easy. You just lay gently across the saddle, and you tell Lily as she starts to panic a bit. You just let her know to calm down and let Isfael do the work. You guys are just kind of tagging along, and she easily makes it across and kind of tugs Copper along too. Copper's like a natural swimmer. Arafor, you go next, and you get across. Maybe a little bit more work. not having crossed such a deep ford in quite some time. And definitely the horse hasn't, so it takes you a while to calm the horse. But you get across with the pony. Badu is not so fortunate. As the rest of you are sitting on the other side of the bank, Arafor, you're just about to make it to the bank, I guess. You would look back and you would see a Badu kind of struggling with the horse, Wari kind of sitting behind him. And they're trying to guide Wari's pony. The pony starts to pull against the rope, which kind of stymies them a bit. Arafor, as you look up the river, you see a large tree fall making its way, and it's about to it's on a collision course with Badu and his horse.
And is this
Badu? You don't see it. You're like too busy. You're busy.
Yeah, he's
doing the horse thing. Arafor's the first one to see it. Then I would probably right after that would be Barrelass and actually no, Barrelass is still on the other bank. She hasn't gone yet, but she might see it. Then Moira and Lily.
So he's completely involved in his own shenanigans here, and they're probably like a quarter, maybe halfway, if we were being generous, across.
Oh, yeah, you're at least halfway.
Yeah, and the horses just start acting up, and Badu is like leaning down and like next to the horse's ear and like trying to be gentle with it, and he's like, you can see him almost like when when a 6-year-old tries to pet the dog or the cat and they're just like too rough and they're just like manhandling the animal, and he's trying to pet the back of the horse's neck, and he's like whispering sweet nothings in its ear with his coarse gravel of a voice, and it's just not going anywhere. It's not budging, and it kind of shakes its head and snorts at him, and he realizes he's not getting anywhere. Here in this part, about how deep would you say it was?
It's probably about the mid chest on the horse, so it's still on solid ground. It's not swimming, but the pony is definitely having to kick and swim its way to keep up with this horse.
Okay.
And you can see that it's kind of pulling against it, and that's kind of
right.
causing the horse to kind of, like I say, stymie.
Yeah. Badu, if he would be able to, would he maybe he might try to swing his leg over and get on the downstream side of the horse, so like on the left side, and maybe see if he can stand and lead it a little bit better that way if he's not sitting on it.
Yeah, you swing your leg over and slide down the other side, and then as you look over the neck of the horse, that's when you see the tree that's quickly bearing down on your horse, yourself, and Wari. I'm going to need an animal handling check from you, Badu.
Is there any way I can aid in this?
Yeah, how would Moira do it?
She'd wade. She'd swing off Isfael and wade into the river a little bit, maybe up to her knees, and start whistling for the horse.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yes. Yeah, so that'll give you advantage.
Well, all right. That's a 14.
Yeah. So she whistles, and the horse just kind of lurches, and you kind of grab a handful of its mane and the saddle, and it kind of lurches forward, pulling you, and it drags this pony forward. And just as this tree kind of just passes by, it brushes across the back of the pony, but the horse just kicks and kicks and kicks and just drags you alongside it, Badu, and the pony itself, as you kick up onto the other side of the bank.
Yeah.
Moira's standing there, and she's probably turning and heading back to the bank. And then you see Baralas crossing behind you.
I imagine that that Badu was with the being pulled in the water, that he was just sideways, just like clinging on to the front of the horse, and then it just gets up as it's climbing the bank. He basically just flops half onto the bank with his legs in the water, and Moira has to like catch the horse as it runs away from him.
Yeah. You would probably be pretty exhausted. That was probably a lot of work for Badu, not being a horseman himself. You would probably have a certain degree of exhaustion. Nothing mechanical, but it's something that you would probably fall on the bank, take those heavy breaths, and just kind of roll over and be like,
yeah, definitely.
You settle. Yeah.
I imagine Warrior's doing the same thing, and not because he helped in any way, but he saw like at the last minute the log and everything coming, and just flashbacks of all the river crossings he's had in the last 5 months just painted out, and he grabs the horses or the pony's reins, closes his eyes, and just curls up into a little ball and just waits, preparing himself to be destroyed.
Yeah. And it's that moment of relief, that adrenaline, that adrenaline crash when you're saved from that fate. And so you recover yourselves, and Arafor quickly gets you guys back on path and leads you northward a little bit at a scant to try to save some time until you guys pick up the road that leads through the troll shaws. If you remember, this is where you guys had your run-in with a troll, probably a story you would share with the others. So you're on your guard as you travel. When you stop to camp, you keep your fire low so as not to attract the attention of something that you may not want to attract. And you begin to travel through the troll shaws.
How close to the troll cave do we get?
You're not really sure, Wari, because you guys were so terribly lost last time. And it was only by the aid of the elves that you were able to get back on target. And I think probably that's when you realized how far off course you guys really were. Which then leads us. Has anyone ever been to Imladris before?
Would I have come this way on my way in from Rohan?
No, you guys came. You and
We came the
Roger
South Road.
you came the South Road up through Tharbad.
That's right. Never mind. Then not me.
I know Lily has not. Badu, Wari, no. So the Arafor would be the only one that may have spent some time in Rivendell.
Rivendell is one of his known areas, so he's definitely been there.
So the next question is he's been there, but does he know the secrets of Rivendell? Does he know how to find the secret pass or passes that lead into the valley, the elves? I would think that he would. So why don't you just give me a survival check? You would treat it as your favored terrain.
Yep. All right, that is a 14 on the die, which is going to be a modified 20.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So you spend 3 more days traveling through the troll shaws, taking as much precaution as you can, and it pays off. You have no run-ins with trolls, wolves, or orc. And on the 3rd day is when Arafor points off at these set stand of trees, and he says, "There, right there." And as the rest of you look, it seems no different than any other trees you have seen. And he smiles and looks at you and says, and that's when you would show them the secret way, or one of the secret ways into the protected valley of Rivendell. You lead him through that, and after several minutes, you reach this point where the trees separate, and you're looking down on this great valley. You can see these grand I don't know if they'd call them chateaus, but these grand villas that are just nestled into the valley itself. You see this great river raging down below. You see these elegant bridges that span across and connect some of these buildings. And Arafor, and you would just hear, I don't want to say Arafor, Barolash would just breathlessly say, Rivendell.
Yes, seeing that, Lily's eyes would just glow and her whole face would just light up. She's always had a thing for elves.
Yeah, you would easily see the path that you need to take. It kind of winds its way down into the valley, to where you all could cross one of several bridges that are in Rivendell. As you start to make your way down, you hear a and followed by three more, and three arrows thunk into the ground near you. And you hear a disembodied voice say, "Go no further."
I think Moira looks over at Arafor for guidance on what to do here.
Does Worry recognize the voice?
Does not.
We come bearing important news and great need to speak with the Master Elves in Rivendell.
You come uninvited, Ranger. The news must be dire indeed. And almost like magic, three elves materialize, like appearing like almost out of nowhere, about 30 feet away from you. Their hair is like this dark, almost jet black, and their features and beauty is like unlike anything any of you have ever seen who has not laid their eyes upon an elf. One of them you would mark as its leader comes forward. And who are you? You don't recognize this elf, Arafor, from one of the times when you visited here.
My name is Arafor, son of Eredor, Ranger of the North.
The elf's eyebrow kind of raises a bit. Arafor. Kingly name.
Indeed.
I am Melicon. I will lead you. And he turns to the other two elves and he nods, and they kind of melt away into the trees. And he smiles at the rest of you. And he kind of pauses there, just kind of pauses there as he's kind of cradling this elegant bow in his arms. And you get a sense that he's waiting for the rest of you to introduce yourselves.
Lily looks at the others, and if nobody speaks up pretty quickly, she's like, I'm Lily Took from the Shire. I'm so excited to meet an elf.
He smiles and laughs and says, a hobbit.
Yes.
Not
and
seen
you're an elf.
I've not seen a hobbit in many years. And then he looks at the rest of you. He looks to you, Badu.
Badu has this kind of almost grossed out look on his face as he just sees the very, very clean shaven look of these elves. And he looks kind of like weirded out at the whole thing and how nobody else is saying anything. He just leans down to Warren and says,
They don't have beards either. It's gross.
And then he kind of reluctantly speaks up and he says,
Hey, Badu.
and then looks away, almost like really uncomfortably.
He nods as you introduce yourself. Baralas would at that point step forward and she would introduce herself as well. And she would do this little half bow towards him, and he would mirror it, but you would see this broad grin on his face as he does so.
Moira takes her cue probably from Baralas and similarly dips a little and says, I am Moira.
He would still have that smile on his face, and he would do the exact same thing. And he'd say, oh, and you have a little troll with you too, I'd see. And he laughs as he looks at you, Wari.
Vori would have just an annoyed, I don't say scowl, but an annoyed, passive aggressive look on his face, and just be like, ugh. And just not answer.
He would look to you, Arafor, and say, found under a rock, no doubt. And he would laugh at his own jibe at the dwarf. And he would turn, and as he starts to walk, he goes, and he would probably walk alongside you, Arafor, as you're leading your horse. And he would say, so you wish to see Lord Elrond?
Yes, we come with something very important. It would be best if he saw it.
You could see the curiosity on the elf's face, but he will not let it get the better of him. He says, and he kind of looks you over, like up and down, and then he looks over his shoulder at the rest of you, and he says, if you'll see Master Elrond, you'll have to clean up first. I know just the place. And he starts to lead you down across the valley. You cross this one of these great spanning bridges. It makes you wonder how it can hold the weight of your fellowship as you cross. It doesn't look like it has the strength in the material, but you've heard about some of the ways that elves are able to construct these things that defy, I guess, gravity. So you cross this bridge. He leads you to this small, elegant chalet, and it's almost as if you were expected. Baths have been prepared, and some other elves there, they smile at you and they offer you clothing to change into after you bathe and comb out your hair and beards and whatnot.
Moira, isn't this lovely? Isn't it all beautiful?
Truthfully, I've never seen anything so lovely.
Aren't you glad you're here?
I am.
Lily, completely forgetting all the horrible things that happened to bring her there, is just like starstruck. It's elves. It's Rivendell. She's just going to chatter on happily to Moira.
Yeah, I think Moira, painstakingly combs through her hair and just listens to the endless happy chatter of Lily.
Yeah, strangely enough, as you guys are with Baralas bathing and whatnot, Baralas herself seems much more relaxed and is chatting freely with Lily, not having any of the kind of the darker undertones that she has had before. She looks more at ease and relaxed. Though you notice when she's bathing, hanging from her neck from that delicate chain is the ring. You can't help but notice that several of the elves that are attending to you, they put their heads together and they whisper as they see it. So you clean up and you are provided more appropriate attire for an audience with the master of Rivendell, Elrond Half-Elven. And Melicon, as you depart this, he's waiting outside and he kind of gives you a nod of approval as he looks across your fellowship. Though he frowns as his eyes fall upon Wari. No, as he frowns upon Wari, who looks, who has grudgingly put his travel clothes back on, though they have been beaten out, so they're still kind of travel stained, but most of the mud and dirt has been knocked clear of him. He frowns, but it quickly is replaced by a smile, and he says, "Follow me." And he would lead you along these flowered paths, and you hear music, though you can't tell where it's coming from, but it is both elegant and serene, and it kind of causes this feeling of calm and ease to come across all of you, something you guys have not felt in quite some time. Probably the last time when you had spent time with Tom Bombadil in the old forest. And so he leads you up this path and to this grand chalet, and he leads you through this front door into a great, it's this open antechamber, and he points to these cushioned seats that line the walls of it, and indicating that you should sit, and he approaches a set of doors and passes through them.
Badu is kind of standing around really like nervously, and it's very obvious he doesn't know what to do with his hands. Like he keeps kind of patting around his sides, and then he'll put them behind his back and then bring them around to his front, and then he plays with his beard a little bit, and he keeps just kind of fiddling about, really not sure what to do. And when he shows them to seats, Badu goes and he sits down, and it's whether anybody had noticed or not before, he looks similar to Wari, almost the same as when they had first came in, except he doesn't smell bad anymore. But his hair is still like just mangly, and his clothes, they didn't have anything that would fit him, so he's pretty much just wearing his normal clothes that he cleaned. So he looks really out of place and almost uncomfortable as he kind of like looks around at all the scenery and the elves. A couple of them probably give him some side glances, and he feels really, really out of touch.
Yeah, I imagine that Arafor is almost a mirror to that. It's easy for him to forget that he's the only person who's been here before. So it's kind of ethereal beauty and kind of strange atmosphere would be more natural to him. And he would just take a seat calmly with a rare smile on his face as he looks around.
They were able to find children's clothes for Lily, actually, so she's dressed in clean clothes. Perhaps nicer than anything she would have had before, even if they weren't fancy for an elf particularly. And she doesn't feel shy or anything like that because she's just so full of amazement of everything around her that she probably isn't even really noticing the social cues so terribly much. She's just wide-eyed and like, look at that, Moira. Oh, Barolas, do you see that? And then she stops for a second. I hope they have something to eat. Then she goes back to looking around.
Lily, do you ever think of anything but your stomach?
I get hungry.
You're not certain, but Barolas' chatty nature has seemed to have washed away as she's gotten closer to this audience with Elrond. She just kind of smiles meekly at you, Lily, and nods. She sits down near Wari, and she places a hand near his in some manner of comfort. And you wait there for several minutes before the doors open again. Melicon steps out and he looks at you all, smiles and nods, and he indicates you are to enter.
Arafor will kind of stand and look back to the others and give a nod, like it's okay. It's going to be okay, before leading them in.
As he looks back, Badu's eyes are wide like saucers, and he stands up and kind of grumbles to himself,
They're gonna kill me.
as he looks down at his clothes and looks at the rest of everyone else.
You follow Arafor into this room. You hear the doors close behind you. 4 elves are in here. 3 are seated, and 1 is standing a little away. Behind these seated elves is a grand hearth that is unlit. The room itself, they sit at a polished table, and it appears as though wine and other refreshments have been laid across there. The standing elf takes a step towards you and says, "Greetings, May Gavanen," and speaking both in the Elvish tongue and that of the common tongue. I am Eladon, son to Elrond. Welcome. And you see this elf. He has dark hair, gray eyes, and he's adorned in a bright silver mail, and a silver gray cloak hangs from his shoulder. He indicates chairs that have been arranged around the table. Please, seat.
Arafor gives a slight nod of his head in respect. It is an honor to meet you, son of Elrond. I'll take a seat.
He nods and he starts to move his way to an empty chair by another elf that looks almost exactly as though cut from the same cloth. You would mark them as twins, dressed the same. There's also another, a male and female elf there. You would mark the female possibly a sister. She wears a gray raiment and a girdle of silver leaves wraps around her waist, and covered by a silver and blue mantle. She smiles at you all and nods. But really, what really catches your attention is the other elf. You immediately mark him as Elrond. He has a silver circlet around his head, holding back his dark hair. His gray eyes seem to be measuring you all as you come in. he smiles, and it is warm enough, and he too indicates by a gesture of his hand to have a seat. The she-elf speaks. May we offer you refreshment? Your journey was most likely long to get here. Not many know how to find our hidden valley.
We could not have come so far without Arafor.
Elrond speaks. Arafor, it has been a long time. You look well.
It is an honor of the greatest magnitude to be back in your presence, Master Elrond. It has been some time.
I'm told that you bring dire tidings.
Yes, many things have happened since I've last been here, and we've come across a certain item that we thought could only be best seen after by people such as yours. He's going to kind of look over to Baralas, kind of give her a nod, and just say, "It's okay. We can trust them."
Yeah.
Kind of like for her to show them.
She pulls forth the ring that was hidden and now is not. She lets it fall so it rests across her chest. Elrond just looks and nods. So you are a ring bearer. Baralas, she doesn't say anything. She looks too afraid to, and she just slowly nods her head.
It's all right, Baralas. They're elves. They know about these things, Lily whispers to her. They will help us.
She doesn't look at you, Lily. Her eyes slowly fall to the ring that hangs from her neck, and then to Elrond, and you could see fear in her eyes.
We're not exactly sure how to best go about handling such a thing. There was words of possibly destroying it, though we did not know where we could accomplish such a thing, at least not nearby. We hoped that you would perhaps be able to keep it and contain it here, or at least provide us information.
There are many rings of power, Arafor, and it's at that point that you guys would catch some of the light in the room catches in this blue gem, this large blue gem that rests on this gold banded ring that sits upon his right hand. There are many rings of power. It would seem that you've brought in one here. We could shelter it and keep it safe, or could be unmade in our forges. But what have you brought it here for?
Badu actually almost he half stands up as he kind of leans forward and his eyes get kind of wide and he looks excited. He's,
But you can unmake it. You can destroy this thing.
as he points to it.
One of the twins laughs as you do that, Badu. And Elrond kind of steeples his fingers and he just nods.
Could you set
Such
her
things
free
are-
of it? I'm sorry. Go on.
To your question, Lily, the female elf, she shakes her head sadly and she says, once marked by a ring of power, it cannot be undone. Even if the ring were to be destroyed. And she would kind of look empathetically at Baralas and say, one is forever marked.
Still, it is a burden that, whether or not it can be completely removed, such a thing does not belong in the hands of men, especially does not belong in the hands of the enemy, who has reason to seek us for it and for other reasons. We do not think it's safe with us or anywhere else, so we brought it here. I could think of nowhere better.
Elrond nods at that. And he addresses you all. He goes, I know of this ring. I have sought it myself. When I heard it was found, I had heard whispers that it was sought by agents of the shadow. You've done well, Erefor, to bring it here. You have done what others have not. And he nods to you. And then he looks at Baralas. Ring bearer, what would you do with the ring? Would you see it unmade? Or would you give it to us? And you see all the elves' eyes turn towards Baralas, waiting for her answer. Her right hand goes up and she starts to caress the edge of the ring. She doesn't say anything.
Lily looks at her and speaks a bit coaxingly. Just, Baralas, remember how you wanted it unmade. Even if it doesn't set you free, it will lessen their burden.
Baralas hisses at you as you say that to her. Shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. Hobbit. You haven't bared the burden I have.
No. I have seen some of what it does to you, though. How it gets so heavy.
She, her face twists in a scowl as she looks at you, Lily.
Lily just kind of steps back. There doesn't seem to be much she can do there.
Elrond speaks up. Oh, jeez, what was I going to say? There are many magics in the world. The rings of power, they're all touched by the shadow. None can escape it. They are bound to it. And you don't know if he's talking directly to Baralas or to all of you. Baralas kind of looks up, her eyes rimmed red from tears. And she nods her head slowly as she looks at Elrond, understanding the meaning of his words. I would have the ring unmade. You see the female elf. She smiles, and she nods. You can just see the care in her eyes as she looks to Baralas.
Yeah, hearing Baralas say that, Arafor would try to hide his sigh of relief too, and move his hand under the table away from the hilt of his sword after hearing her kind of building up towards the leaf, fearing perhaps the ring had taken her. But he kind of just nods, stifling the the excitement at hearing that.
Elrond would look across the rest of the group, and not hearing any other dissension from any of the others of your fellowship, he would nod and say, "It's decided then. We'll make preparations to unmake the ring." Baralas grips the ring in her right hand, and she, her shoulders just droop.
Badu lets out a sigh of relief. He was, for a moment there, very tense as Baralas was making her decision, but upon the thought of finally being rid of this burden, he's extremely relieved.
Elrond stands, as do his sons and daughter, and he says, "But pray, don't let it trouble yourselves. Enjoy your time here."
Worry would speak up right after he finished that. Elrond, sir, he's trying to like be nice at the same time, like not trying to not trying to care about what the elves think of him. But he stands up and approaches him if he's able to. Hopefully, he's close enough.
Yeah, you would have to walk around the table.
Okay. So he would reach into his little sack and pull out a piece of paper with a sealed wax symbol that's open, and hand it to Elrond. Just say, I think this burden that we carried for a while should be laid to rest along with the ring. And he would hand him the letter from Padrian to Malor or Terrymac.
His eyebrow would kind of arch as he takes the letter. He recognizes it immediately. And how come by you this, dwarf?
We were given this by Padrian, I believe his name was, and told to deliver it to a gentleman named Malor. And unfortunately, that's what started all of this. We found him dead and then forsaken in several days' journey past it. This ring being the cause, and he would sheepishly like look toward Baralas.
The letter would kind of drop down along by his side, and he would look at you and then at Baralas. It's as I said, this tied to evil.
He would nod and go back to his seat.
Yeah. He would turn to his daughter and say, Arwen, see to our guests. And then he turns to his sons. He says, make the preparations. And with that, Elrond would take his leave. He would stop just long enough to nod to you, Erefor, and then he would depart from the chamber, leaving you, the 6 of you in there. With Arwen. She would get up from the table, and she would just sit there holding her hands together in front of her, waiting on your leave.
You made the right choice, Baralas. It could not have been easy, but it was well made.
Bori puts her hand on her shoulder as Moira says that to her, and just nods.
So Elrond's daughter, Arwen, would make sure that you guys have any refreshments that you would want, and you guys aren't forced to leave this chamber. You could relax and take a snack, which I'm sure Lily would, drink some chilled wine, and then she would take you to a place where you guys can stay in a cottage that's just nestled in the sides of this valley, and and you would be able to stable your horses in a small little pen out behind or beside this cottage, and so the rest of your day passes rather uneventfully. At one point, the elf, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name, Padrion, arrives and just has a quick word with you, Wari and Badu. He had come to thank you for delivering the letter, and I guess that's when you guys would fill him in that Terry Mack was killed, and that you were never able to deliver the letter to him. But needless to say, the fates, whatever it is, the ring was brought to Rivendell. And he seems pleased by that. And unless you had any specific question for him, then he would make his leave. Yeah.
It was more of a clarification. If I remember right, the chain that Malor was that dragged off by one of the wargs.
Oh, the
Yes.
coin
Yeah.
green ambulance.
Okay.
Yeah, the Amulet of Green. Yeah.
Then I guess we would just let him know that he carried that, and it was unfortunately taken from us.
Yeah, he would nod, and thank you for the information, and let you know that he would make sure to let Master Elrond know. And so you spend a few days here in Rivendell before the preparations have been made. It's so the ring, you are told in the ceremony, must be undone under the at a forge under the light of the moon, and then it could be struck and destroyed by one of the elven smiths. And so you were told that this evening that's when it would happen. But it's earlier that day that Baralas approaches you, Moira. What would she find you doing as she approaches you?
Moira's probably sitting where she can look out at the sights of Rivendell. She's got a little piece of wood in her hand that she is continually fidgeting with and carving a bit on. It's beginning to look like a horse. Most of her things do.
So Baralas approaches you. There's that kind of those awkward seconds where she just kind of stands there watching you, but doesn't say anything. And then she seats herself nearby, still saying nothing as you kind of work this bit of wood. And then she says, "A horse."
Ah, yes. I've been around horses since I was a child.
She nods as you say that. Isfael is a fine animal. I've never seen anyone ride a horse like you. Not even Arafor has the skill that you do.
Arafor has many other skills.
She definitely nods at that, thinking of all the times that Arafor has led you guys from danger. You get a sense that she's just making small talk with you. Do you remember? Do you remember when we were in the old forest?
Yes.
The
What about it?
the words I spoke to you? Have you thought much?
No. I haven't. It seems there's been little time for thinking.
Are you telling the truth?
Maybe not so much.
Okay, deception then. I was thinking deception, but I didn't want to.
I rolled a natural one.
Natural one. She puts a hand out and just rests it lightly on your lap, so as not to stop you from carving. What would you do if you were me?
I cannot say, Baralas. I am not you. Your choices are shaped by your experiences and your very soul.
She frowns a bit, maybe disappointed. She goes, I thought you had seen what I have seen. The sky of flame.
I have. But
So how do you not know? She reaches down and she pulls the ring out from below her blouse. And you see her, she pulls the chain up over her head. And she kind of just lowers it down into her left palm. Is it not beautiful? And she kind of holds it just right so that the light of the afternoon sun just kind of reflects off these 7 gems that have been set upon this band.
It is lovely, certainly.
I don't know if it's the magic of the elves, but I can't feel it like I could. Not here.
Then would you stay here with it if it weren't destroyed? Live out your days in Rivendell.
She looks at you. I don't know. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what it'll be like when Elrond says I'll never be free of it.
I do not fully understand how these things work. I don't understand how a shadow can imprint upon you and mark you. But we are all shaped by our past. Can you ever truly be free of something you have done and seen and heard and felt?
She shakes her head, and then she quietly mouths it. No.
Neither can anyone else.
And she kind of leans in closer to you, and she grabs your hand, knocking the wooden carving, and it kind of tumbles out of your hand and hits the ground. And she kind of pulls in close to you, and she goes, I don't think I'm strong enough. I don't think I'm strong enough to destroy the ring. And you feel cold, cool metal forced into your hand. Can you do it? Can you bring the ring?
If that is what you wish, then I will do it. But it was you who bore it this far.
I want to be strong enough. I do, but the thought of the ring being destroyed is almost too much for me to bear. If you could bring it and have it undone, then I would be free of it. At least the ring.
Moira kind of shakes her head. I feel as though it cannot be me.
But you're strong. You are stronger than me. I have seen it.
I will go with you. But if this has a grip upon you, then you must be the one to see it to the end.
She
Or
starts. Oh,
Any fondness you have towards me would turn to resentment and hatred if I were the one to destroy it.
she slowly nods her head as the words sink in. There's wisdom in your words. And she starts to pull her hands away. Moira, give me a wisdom save, please.
Fail.
The metal of this ring touches your hand, and as it does so, visions pass through your mind, and you have these through your you have these whispers of power. She starts to draw the ring away from you, and you don't want her to. She offered it to you.
There, less perhaps. Moira's kind of holding on to it. Perhaps it should not be destroyed.
She smiles at you and she says, "You don't think so?" So we should keep it here then.
We could. Or we could take it with us and use it.
Or you could use it. And she smiles at you. If I gave the ring to you, freely, I would be free of it. You're stronger than me. You could carry the ring. I am weak.
What if I am not?
I've seen it in you. I've heard the whispers. You are the stronger of us, too. The ring has chosen you.
Moira kind of closes her eyes. We should seek counsel. I would bear it.
They would lie to you. They want to rob you of the power the ring will give you. Don't you see it? I do. Seek in your heart, you know it's true. Why do you think the elves want it? They don't want to destroy it. They want it for themselves. Did you not see Wari hand the letter?
What did the letter say?
Elrond sought the ring. Wanted it for himself, and now he'll have it. You don't honestly think they will destroy it, do you?
I have never met an elf. I do not know if they are good to their word.
They are an ancient people, well versed in the ways of magic. I have heard whispers that they are the ones that crafted the wings themselves. If they are so evil, does that not make the elves evil themselves?
Then we should not give it to them.
She nods, agreeing with you. You are fast on your horse. You must take the ring away quickly.
Where? Where would I go?
North.
But
Follow your visions. They'll take you where you need to go.
those frighten me, Baroness.
She rests a comforting hand on you. They shouldn't. That was doubt. Your own conscience. Like you said, we cannot forget our past. But they makes us stronger, does it not?
It can if we let it.
You must go quickly. The ranger. He is a wily one. He will know.
What will you do? But what of the others? What of Lily?
What of her?
How can I just leave and not tell her goodbye?
You have a greater calling, Moira. You know it. Search your soul. You know it's true. You caress the ring, Moira, and you hear these whispers in your mind. They call to you, beckon you.
He knows my name.
Barolas nods. The sorcerer is wise. You get this, you want to put the ring on.
Moira looks at Barolas and holds the ring and gives her the kind of questioning look of, should I?
She nods approvingly. You slip the chain off of the ring and it falls into your palm.
Moira slips the ring on.
You feel the power course through you. You feel your senses heightened to a level you would not think possible. You see Barolas smile at you, and it feels warm. One word. Yes. You're not sure if it was aloud and Barolas heard it or it was just you. Barolas stands and she reaches down and pulls you to your feet. Now, quickly. You must go.
But Barolas, I don't know if I can. I swore an oath. I have a duty.
The power of the ring continues to course through you, Moira. You hear that whisper again. Come to me. Fulfill your destiny. Barolas reaches down and picks up the chain where it had fallen on the ground. very near your unfinished sculpture of the horse. She holds it out to you, and she nods. Quickly, take the ring off. Wear it around your neck. Tell no one.
Moira does so and slips the chain beneath her dress.
As you pull the ring off, there's this feeling of emptiness immediately. The euphoric feeling you felt as you wore the ring is gone. You feel empty for those few moments, and then they pass. She helps you slip the ring onto the chain, and you put it around your neck and tuck it below your blouse. She smiles at you and says, "Now, quickly, you must go. I'll do my best."
To follow? What?
She nods. "But I must keep the others busy so you can get away. Quickly." And she kind of shuttles you off in the direction of where you know Isfael is stabled. Go.
Moira feels like she's being torn in two. But one half is so much stronger than the other. Her feet move as if of their own volition towards the stables. She whispers to Isfael, "Shh, we will be off soon. Just the two of us." But the rest of her, she pauses and she digs inside the saddlebags for a scrap of paper. She scrawls something on it and finds Arafor's horse, tucks it in before saddling Isfael and leaving.
Perfect. Several hours pass. Baralas approaches you, Arafor. She runs up. She looks panicked. "She's gone. Arafor, she's gone."
Who's gone?
"Moira. I saw her. She rode away on Isfael."
Did she say anything? Why did she leave?
She shakes her head. "I saw her where the path overlooks the river."
Tell the others. I'll be right back.
She nods, and she hurries off. You run to the path, Arafor, that she spoke of. You know the bench well. You've sat there a few times yourself. It's very peaceful. It looks out over the river and the valley. You run up there and you see laying on the ground a half-carved bit of wood in the shape of a horse.
Arafor kneels down, picking it up, kind of looking it over in his hand before looking up down the path to see if he can see anything.
You see nothing. I mean, are you looking like for footprints or something like that? I mean, you are a ranger, so. I mean, if you want to give me a survival roll, you could. I mean, you definitely know Moira was here at this bench.
Trying to think if he would. Yeah, that's an 18.
Yeah, you look, and you're not certain, but you follow what you believe are tracks left by Moira. They lead to the stable, and you can see where Isfael was, and you notice one of the saddlebags, the straps or the flaps that cover it. One of them is unstrapped or unbuckled, and laying open.
Arafor walks towards the horse, confused, noticing Isfael's absence. Half expecting it, as Baralas had said, half not.
Yeah, you would probably have that
sees-
sinking feeling, seeing that Isfael is gone. But I wonder if there's still some doubt that maybe she just went for a ride. I mean, it had been several days since she's ridden. And Moira is one that enjoys running across the open plain. As you get near your own horse, you see a linen wrapped object in the saddlebag that was not there before.
Yeah, Arafor goes through it.
Yeah, as you pull it out,
That's it.
a folded scrap of paper falls from it to the ground. You don't have to unwrap the object to know what it is. You can feel it. It's the horn.
Arafor's eyes go from the horn to the note. He reads it only in his own mind. Crumples it up in his hands.
Perfect. Taylor, did you send a message to Jeff what the note says? Perfect.
Yes.
I love it, guys. I love it.
He reads the note and then kind of crumples it into a bunch and drops it back into the bag. And then seeing the half-carved horse in his hand, realizes that he's gripping it tightly. His knuckles are white. Why? After everything. Two oaths, one to protect the girl, and to take the horn. He drops the horse into the bag. Just sits up against the wall, falling down. Not exactly sure what to do.
And that's where we'll end this session. Awesome. Thank you, guys. It was really fun. I really liked it. And we're going to end.